Okay, so hello everybody. On first so-called webinar from RC Electronics, I will call this today as online workshop with the subject Albatross app for Android devices to be used on GPS triangle competitions, or even your regular flying when you just go and thermal around on a regular day. As this online workshop is meant as a workshop, if anybody has any questions in between, you can just unmute yourself and ask. I will answer in between. You can write a question on chat. I will also try to answer it while being asked, as I really see very important that everybody understands what I'm saying at the time I am explaining, not later, because we will forget something. So if you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt me and ask. Okay, over here I have set my system, but you don't see it. I have my Sparrow connected outside to get GPS. I have on Sparrow connected RF module, and everything is then linked to my Snipe unit, which is connected to my phone running Albatross app. And I have my Yeti for servo control then to also show this. Basically, now we will start with presentation of Albatross. I will just slowly share the screen. 1 second. Share screen. I think this one. Okay, Bernie, can you just tell me what do you see? Do you see only the Albatross app? Yeah, you have to unmute.
Yes, we got the Albatross app.
Oh, okay, let's try. Okay, because this is not connected to my phone, and I hope this will work. Oh shit. Second. Let me try to, yeah, it's connecting again. Okay, so basically when you run the app, you basically see this basic screen with 6 buttons. 5 of them are working. First button is a flight button, which you will enter the flight state. Next button is task button, everything what needs to be done with a task. You will see it here or edit here. Then we have a logbook, settings, about, and just a logo. I will start from the bottom up. Basically, by pressing about button, you get a basic information about the Albatross app, which is the version which is uploaded. This is good to have the latest ones because there are still new features which are coming and still some bugs which are being fixed. This one, 1.6c, is basically what I have been testing yesterday. So this is coming, let's say this week, will be published. And over here, you can see the list of your linked devices. And basically, this is the license, the licenses which have been entered on this phone for the Albatross. Basically, I have 2 devices. One is T3000 unit with serial number 55025, and one is a Snipe unit with 168015 serial number. Basically, when you start with the app, clean installation, you have to add a new device. Basically, this is what you click to add a new device. This is the serial number of your ground unit. The ground unit can basically be Snipe, Finch, T3000, or Flymate at current state. So this is the serial number of one of the units which you have, which you would like to connect to Albatross. And then over here, you enter the registration code, or let's call it a license code, which you get once you purchase the Albatross app. Once these two are entered correctly, you have a save button and new device is added to the list of your Albatross. Everything clear here? I hope. I don't see any chats. Okay, I hope this is all clear.
On mine, I've got two of the same devices and I can't seem to
delete it.
Delete it. Is that right?
Yeah, there is a trick how to do it, and I will show this at the end. Please remind me again, Bernie. And when we will get into more technical details, it's possible, not so straightforward, but possible. Okay, up to 5 devices can be linked to one phone tablet, and Albatross can be installed on unlimited phones, tablets. So that means once you purchase a license for the Albatross, you can install it on unlimited devices, but it will only work with the ground unit for which the license was purchased for. So I hope this is clear. So there is no limitation on how many installations you can do. It's only limited to how many devices you can connect to one Android device, up to 5, but normally people have 2. I don't know if somebody has 3. Okay, let's go back to main screen. Then we come to a settings. Okay, just if somebody would just like to explore the Albatross, you can free download it. Everything works. You can do whatever I will show it now. The only missing part will be communication with the device, so there will be no live data stream coming in. So that's basically it. This is the only limitation. You don't need to purchase the license before you try it, basically to learn it. So if somebody is still thinking about, download the app, install it, play with it, and then if you decide, you can go on and purchase the devices and licenses and so on. Okay, when you enter into the settings, you have a list of your planes. This is the list of my planes which I fly. First 2 are light class gliders, and the third one is a scale glider. Basically, we will just now add new one. Press the button add new, and the new glider is shown on the list. Basically, there is no limitation on how many gliders you can add, but I know that everybody has a limited number of them, so it will be enough to cover all of your gliders. Then, if you want to remove the glider from the list, you just press the trash bin. Okay, you are being asked if you really want to delete. Yes, delete, and it's gone. So this is how you can remove the glider. Once you remove the glider, it's no undo function, so it's lost. You have to do it again. So be careful with this trash can. I will add it again. Then to enter into the settings, press on the name of the glider. This is now default. Pressing it, you get basically all the settings which you can set for specific glider. Now, some of the settings are also common settings, which are common for all gliders on your glider list. Majority of them it's glider based. Some of them are common. And to just explain, the last 3, units, cloud, and beeps, these are common settings for all the gliders which are on the glider list. So if you change units here on glider default, you will change the units for all gliders. Okay, I hope this is clear. Anything else? So glider warnings, voice graphics, Vario servo is glider based settings. So each glider can have their own settings. Okay. I have some questions on the chat. Possible to have bold font type for the info box. We'll think about that. Stefan, I have to talk with my programmers. Can you copy all of the settings from one glider to a new one? No. Basically, when you start a new glider, you get a default settings, which I think will cover 90% of all users which will use the app. This is my personal settings, and I think it will cover. In this app, which I'm showing today, this is not still done, but tomorrow this will be implemented. So next release will have these settings, the full settings. Nevertheless, I will show later how to copy all the glider settings from one tablet to another tablet. This I will show at the end. Can you have a different cloud settings for different gliders? No, you can't, because the cloud settings, when we will come to it, it's basically email address and your GPS triangle link login address, which is basically only one. Okay, let's start with the glider. This is basically the first settings. By pressing on it, you get your glider name. Over here, basically you name your glider. Let's see, okay. You get the value and you can just change it, and we will say test 1 or test 2, nevertheless. Okay. So now this is the name of your glider. Once you go back, the settings are already saved. There is no save button. If you change the value, it's already saved. So if I go now back and back again to main screen, if I press, okay, it has to sync a bit. If I press settings button again, now we will see on the list test2 glider. This is the name on which this glider is presented. Basically, this is the name of your glider. Okay, all is clear here? I think so. Okay, Thomas Orb, does the cloud settings already works? Yes, all the cloud settings already works. We will come later to them and I will demonstrate them. Okay, so back to glider settings. Then we have a registration number. This is basically the registration number on your fuselage. On scale gliders, there is some registration number. On light class, there is none. This is basic, just an info which goes into the IGC file, and it's just informational based, so you can enter it or not. So this is basically just the fields to know basically the name of the glider, the competition number, registration number, and the competition number is the label on the tail. This is basically a 2-letter or 3-letter short name of the glider. Again, scale gliders has its sport, and light class doesn't have anything on the tails. So again, it's not important. You can put it in whatever you want. Oh, sorry, my phone is turning off. Okay, You can put it whatever you want, so that's irrelevant. Okay, come on, think. Then we have the weight. This is the weight of your glider, and this is the weight at which the polar will be measured. At this time, this is only information, but once the McCready flying will be released, this will be important, because on this weight and then on the ballast, it will calculate your wing loading, and it will also calculate at which speed you have to fly based on the polar which will be entered. So for now, this is not important. In, let's say, 1 or 2 months, once McCready flying functions will be enabled and implemented, this will be important. Basically, this is my minimum weight of my scary glider, which I never fly lower. And if I add more ballasts, then I enter this in a flight screen, which will come later. The span of the glider is basically the wingspan. Not important. It's basically just for the information. Wing area is important. The wing area you have to enter correctly for McCready flying, because based on the weight and the wing area, the wing loading is calculated, and wing loading will be needed for the McCready flying, which needs to know what is the wing loading you're flying at. Okay. Okay, Stefan has a question. Is it possible to modify the beep frequency to imitate the distance to turning point beeps of T3000? I'm used of this, and it was more appropriate than the current basic settings. Yes, it's a bit different, and I think we will come back to these questions once we get to the beep settings. But the idea of T3000 was that beep was always 150 meters before, second beep was 50 meters before, and the third beep was 20 meters before. And now with the Albatross, you have time before the turning point. So you can set the time that it's 8 seconds, 4 seconds, and 2 seconds is the full settings, but you can change these to different values to mimic this T3000 settings, which was before. Okay, and Jonas has a question. Possible to enter weight and ballast in grams and wing span also? Wing area in decimeter with 1 decimal. It seems this is done only for the heaviest birds. Wingspan in meters with decimals. I mean, yes, that is true. You're absolutely right, because McCready flying will be only possible with Raven, which basically does not fit in the light class. It shortly fits into sports class, but it fits into the scale class because it needs an airspeed. This is why this was based only for the bigger ones and not for the small ones. And this is also the limitation of units like Finch, Flymate, T3000. All of them will not give you McCready flying. This will be only possible with Raven and Snipe and Albatross. My screen is missing the buttons on the bottom. These buttons on the bottom, the arrow, circle, and the rectangle, this is the phone buttons. This is the Android buttons. If you have it on your phone differently, then it will not show. Basically, the Albatross app is only the white area. Anything else is basically the phone. So I don't know which phone or tablet you have run. Okay, back to the glider settings. Then we have the polar A, B, and C. This is coming. This is for the future, prepared. On current versions, you don't have this. Maybe I will also hide this in the next release because this is now I'm testing. What is the polar A, B, and C? Polar of the glider is basically the second stage polynomial, which has the coefficient A, B, and C. And with this equation, you can basically mathematically say this is the polar of my plane. And this is what you will enter for your plane from the database, which will be, I hope, publicly published. But if you will record it yourself, I will prepare the tools to get everything from the measurement done on the Raven to get these A, B, and C coefficients, and you will enter it here, and that's your polar of the plane. Okay, then we go to the stall speed and V and E. Stall speed is basically when you stop flying and the plane basically just drops. And the V and E is never exceed speed. This is basically the structure-based speed which the plane will flutter. So if you enter this, and again, this is based on the airspeed, not ground speed, not 3D speed. So this is only working with Raven and Snipe. When you enter these two parameters, let's say now I have 57 kilometers per hour, stall speed. Once the plane is flying slower or equal to 57 kilometers per hour, Snipe will start telling you stall, stall, stall. That means push the elevator forward and you will not stall. So you have to put this limitation a bit higher. Basically, you can do this test, you fly straight, you pull, 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 and you just check, or somebody will tell you the speeds, and you see when the glider nosedive or stalls or whatever, you say, okay, this is 55 kilometers, I want to put my warning 58 or 60. And in this case, you will not stall the glider, especially in thermals, which basically, if you stall in a thermal, you lose whatever you gain in last 30 seconds. So you just throw away a lot of altitude. The never exceed speed, once the airspeed goes beyond 220 kilometers in this example, the Snipe will tell you speed, speed, speed. That means pull elevator slowly to lower the speed, or gently air brakes out, whatever, if this will be okay for your glider. So you have to slow down, otherwise your plane can go kaboom. This is also very good if you really don't want to do low passes with high speed, to set this speed quite lower. In example, that is the speed of the RSV 17, which I got information that should be okay, but normally I set my speed to 180 kilometers per hour. Why? Because if by some reason I look down or look around what others are doing and my plane goes nosedive, I immediately hear speed, speed. I just pull the elevator slowly because my plane is doing something. I get a warning, my plane is nosediving, it's getting speed, I have to pull the elevator to slow it down and then try to find it and what's going on, you know. That's a bit of, let's say, a trick to use it. Okay, so I will go back to the questions on the chat. Load the time settings to turning point by Jose. Thank you. Stefan, will McCready work through Finch? No, that's the function of Snipe only. This is the only difference, is Snipe will go stereo navigation and McCready flying, and the Finch will not, and this is the price difference also. My Green is missing. This is already answered. Jose, I agree. I do not mean the seconds, I mean the frequency. Ah, okay, the frequency. Yeah, it was an idea to basically implement also the beeping frequency. And because when I was talking with everybody, not to you, Stefan, everybody just used what was default. And this is why I said, okay, I will not complicate too much, but it's prepared, just not enabled. If it will be really needed, I can also add to, no, I'm sorry, this, yeah, for the beeps, I can add to change the each beep frequency, but for now, this is not on the high list of to-do things. So we can do and talk about this later. John Elias asks, are the poll files still stored in the Raven or you can access them with Albatross? No, the polar files are stored and recorded only on Raven because there are some algorithms behind it, how they're measured. I will do the next session, or somebody came with mic. I will do the next session maybe next week about polar measurement. So all the answers about the polars will be, all the questions about the polars will be answered, let's say in 5 to 7 days with the next online workshop. Let's return now to Albatross. Okay, so back to the settings. Next one is warnings. So by pressing on the warnings button, you get all the warning settings which you can enable. First is an altitude. Altitude warning is based, because this application was developed for GPS flying, what is based on GPS altitude, but not really GPS altitude. This is basically the elevation above the airfield, because the GPS altitude which is presented on Albatross is raw GPS altitude minus task elevation, which is defined in a task. So basically, once you are 900 meters above takeoff position, you will get altitude warning if altitude warning is enabled. By pressing on this slider button, you can disable it and there is no altitude warning. Where this comes handy? Basically, in light class, you just set here 320, 330 meters, and you will get an altitude warning before you reach 350 meters, which is basically the altitude limitation for the light class. While flying on the task, you can go higher before start the task, but once you start the task, you should not exceed 350 meters. And this is quite common error which some of the pilots are doing. Also, when publishing the flights to GPS Triangle League, we can see that they went up to 400, 500 meters, and that's a no-go on the competition. So this is basically when you set the altitude warning. And please do not set it on the altitude limitation, because the warning will only be triggered when the altitude is higher or the same as set here. So if also in a sport class or scale class, you have a daily penalty zone at 800 meters, you should enter here 750 meters, because once you are in a thermal and get an altitude warning and you level it and push it, you're already 870 meters if the thermal is strong. And if you have not enough margin, then you will hit the altitude and you will get 0 score. Then stall speed and never exceed speed, you can just enable these two warnings. So the value of the stall and the never exceed speed we already seen is set in a glider. and in the warnings you can enable it. So basically, if you don't want to have these stall warnings, you can enter the value for the stall speed and you can disable it here. The same goes to the never exceed speed. You just set the value of your glider in the glider settings and turn it off here. Stall and never exceed speed only works with Raven and Snipe. Battery, this is basically the voltage which is measured by the system, whatever it is, Raven, Sparrow, FlyMate. And once dropped, once the voltage is below the value set here, you will get warning low battery, low battery. Basically, majority of them, of the pilots now use the back channel telemetry of the system they have. So if you want to use this one, you can use it. Otherwise, you can just turn it off and use your primary telemetry link for the system you use to monitor the voltage from the receiver. Okay, any questions here? Okay, guess not. Let's go back. Now we come to a voice settings. Voice settings is basically voice announcements, which the Albatross or Snipe will tell you. Once we get here, we have a line distance. What is a line distance? This is basically the off-track distance. So if you have been listening to some webinars from John Copeland and also from Philip Kolb and Dani Averly, basically once you have a track and then you have 20 out, 40 out, 60 out, or 20 in, 40 in, 60 in. This is basically the announcements at the distance from the ideal task line being reported. If this is turned off, there is no announcements for inside or outside from the task line. Understood? If you enable this, then you can set at which range or interval the voice announcement will come. Basically, if you set this to 30 meters, you will get the report 0 meters outside, 30 meters outside, 60 meters outside, 90 meters outside. If you set this to 10 meters, you will get 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, too much for sure. 20, it's quite perfect, or 25, you get 25, 50, 75, 100 meters out. You just want to be around 20 to 30 meters all the time outside in a scale class or sport class. In light class, you want to be 10 to 20 meters outside. So if you set 20 meters, you are good to go. Okay, then we have altitude voice announcement. Okay, Kerstin, have a question. Do you have the same voice messages if you use Raven or Sparrow? This is independent on the system used in a glider. So in a glider, you can have any system. This will work for any system also on the ground. If you have a Snipe, Snipe will tell you this. If you have a Finch or a FlyMate, then the Albatross app, that means your tablet or phone, will report this inside-outside distance. So this is independent of the system in use. Okay, John has next question. With the Sparrow, I do not always get announcements every 20 meters, even when slowly moving in or out. Even though I have the value set at 20. No, these voice announcements are not controlled by time, but they are controlled by the origin and margin around these 20 meters. That means if you are not flying slowly out, but you are flying like 60-degree or 90-degree out, you can miss some of the intervals, basically when flying bigger plane or let's say moving faster, because this voice announcement will be set at 20 meters plus minus 3 meters. So if you basically have drop RF link bed in between, 20 meter will never be announced. Then 40 meters will be announced because you are already past this report interval, and it makes no sense to report your 20 out when you're already 40 out. Okay, so this is basically depends a bit on the reception of RF link, or let's say data income stream, and on how fast you are moving around these lines. Okay, altitude. Altitude voice announcement is basically your altitude report. In this case, it's enabled, it's on and set to 50 meters. That means the voice announcement will come altitude 50 meters, altitude 100 meters, altitude 150 meters, 200 meters. So every 50 meters, you will get automatic altitude report. If you want to get every 20 meters, set here 20 meters. This is up to the pilot. This is just basic information that you know, okay, now I'm on 400 meters. Okay, I have to climb now. Oh, I'm now at 250 meters. Okay, I lost half of the altitude in the scale class. I did 3 triangles. Okay, maybe I can do 3 more, or better to find a thermal, go up again. So basically, this is, in my case, I always say in a scale glider, once I hear 200 meters altitude report, then I really start to search for a thermal. Because when you go then lower, it's very hard to find. Below 100 meters in a scale glider, you can be landing in a short one. So this is for me as I fly. So my margin is 200 meters for scale gliders and 50 meters for light class. At 50 meters, I have to find a thermal. Then it's a time report. Time report, in this case, is enabled. You can turn it off. Every 5 minutes, you will get a voice announcement. And this is announced working time. Basically, in a scale and sport class, we have 30 minutes working time. In a light class, we have 20 minutes. What does this mean? Once you start the task, you get a voice announcement, task started. This is always working. You cannot disable this. And then once 5 minutes has passed, you will get a report in light class, 15 minutes remaining. You know, you still have 15 minutes. Then you will get 10 minutes remaining. Then you will get 5 minutes remaining. So the interval, if enabled for the time, will be reported every 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 1 minute. You can set here 1 minute. So every minute it will tell you 19 minutes remaining, 18 minutes remaining, 17 minutes remaining. But this is too much of information. It's good to know on 5 minute base that you get an idea, okay, I have to now stop thermal link, I have to do laps. So because I only have 10 more minutes. And nevertheless, what is the time settings? The last 5 minutes will always be reported every minute. So even if you have 10 minutes interval for the time, last 5 minutes will always be told 4 minutes remaining, 3 minutes remaining, 2 minutes remaining, 1 minute remaining, because then you really need to have more reports on the time remaining, because then you are under pressure. how fast should I fly to finish one more, two more, and you don't need to ask your helper what is the time, what is the time, what is the time. The Albatross will tell you every minute, and once you get on 45 seconds, it will tell you every 15 seconds. So you get 5 minutes, 4, 3, 2, 1, then 45 seconds remaining, 30 seconds remaining, 15 seconds remaining, then it will start countdown every 2 seconds. 13, 11, 9, 7, 5, 3, 2, 1, 0. So then you know, push, 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 push. So you are good to finish the last one. And this is basically independent on the interval for the time. But if you disable time voice announcements, there will be no voice announcement at all. Okay, any question here? I hope it's understandable. Okay, then we have an inside voice announcement. Many pilots mismatch this with the inside-outside report. This is the line distance. Inside is meant when you are inside the turn point sector. That means that point is reached. The navigation will go to the next point, you can turn, go to the next point, and if enabled, when you fly, you will get the voice inside. That means, okay, turn, go to next point. This is this option inside. Okay? Then you have a penalty option, which is by default disabled. If on the start you are too fast or too high, you get the penalty points on the score for the competition. And if enabled on voice announcement, the Albatross will tell you 58 penalty points. So you know you will get 58 penalty points at the end. Then you can decide, okay, I will just go on, or now I will go around and restart. So this is basically the information, how many penalty points you got if you are basically too fast and too high and you hear 120 penalty points, you go back, because then you have altitude and speed reserve, so you can just pull up, go back, and you can do a restart with no penalty points easily. Okay, now some questions. Kerstin, my Snipe Sparrow doesn't send the time message. Especially the last minute, I don't get this information. Firmware, what is wrong? Do you have this time voice announcement enabled? Check this. If this is enabled, it has to work. And just do 0.9 version is okay, and at least 1.5 version of Albatross should be used to work this. If you still have any questions, you can, any problems, you can contact me on email and I will support you. Okay, John, can you change the WAV files for the announcements as you can do with the T3000? Yes, there is a trick. On T3000, it's basically a list of the WAV files which are played. This, you can do the same on Snipe unit. When you connect the Snipe unit to a PC via USB cable, you can see the voice folder, and inside are basically the same WAV files as in T3000, and you can change them, and you will then have different voices. You can record yourself at the end. But this is not possible on the Albatross app, because Albatross app is using the integrated text-to-speech function of Android, and it's always as Android will pronounce it or tell it, so we cannot change there anything. Okay, David Woods, can you change the inside voice announcements to say turn instead? Yes, I already got this requirement by 2 or 3 pilots, so it's on to-do list. I just have to get a new record for the T3000 and the snipe, these WAV files. And for the snipe, in this next release, it will say next point or go to next point. So this will be now changed for Albatross. That means Finch and Flymates users will already have this because they will use the Albatross voice announcement. The snipe users will still have the inside word. But nevertheless, the inside word is deprecated in my case because normally you get an inside beep, which is better, and 95% of the pilots which I know are just using the beep. This is why by default this option is off, because you have an inside beep, which is not possible on Finch and Flymate. So nevertheless, T3000 and Snipe users will just use the inside beep and will have this disabled. Okay, yes, okay. Then Kerstin, please contact me about this problem on email. Thomas, Insight has not the highest priority. It is possible to change what means thermal vario. We come to the thermal vario now. Okay, then we have altitude gain. Altitude gain report, battery voltage report, and vario report are basically information reports during the flight. Altitude gain report is only working on Snipe and T3000 units. What does this mean? If enabled, once the pilot goes into the thermal, he will get every 30 seconds, he will get a report. That means, let's say he starts thermaling now, and after 30 seconds, he gets first report about altitude gained. From the time he starts thermaling, basically circling, how many meters he gained or lost. So that means even if you hear a good vario like beep, 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 and then sync, the pilot thinks, oh, I have a good thermal. But once he will hear altitude gain 1 meter, he only gained 1 meter in 30 seconds. So that is very bad. And this is basically the announcement for him that he has to find the center of the thermal or leave it, because it's too small thermal for the scale glider. It's strong, but it's small. It's really, really thin. And once you cross it, it's very strong, but then you go out and you lose everything and go in again. And basically you are on the same level after one circle. So this is the altitude gain, and altitude gain will come every 30 seconds while thermaling. So once the pilot is inside the thermal and he is thermal, he will hear gain 50 meters, gain 75 meters, gain 100 meters, gain 150 meters. And once he left, he says, okay, this thermal I gain around 170, 180 meters, depends on the reporting interval of the altitude information. Then we have the battery voltage. This is by default disabled. Now this is the new settings in newer version of Albatross. This is basically the voice announcement, or let's say voice report of the battery measured by the onboard system, Raven or Sparrow. This works on all devices. If enabled, battery voltage will be reported every 0.1 volt drop of the voltage. That means if your voltage is 8.2 volt, you're using 2S battery, high voltage system for everything, you get a report battery 8.2 volts. Okay, then you fly, and basically you pull the air brakes or butterfly, you will get the report battery 8.1 volt. Because it dropped for 0.1 volt, it will report it. Once released, again, battery 8.2 volts. So you know that your battery is changing. This is good if your servo is blocked using a lot of current, and if you hear like battery 8.1, battery 8.0, battery 7.9, battery 7.8, start landing, go down, something is wrong. If you hear these reports, basically when you pull some air brakes out, then you say, okay, because the servos use a lot of current, my battery voltage dropped a bit, no problem. So this can save your glider if enabled. If you disable this, there is no battery voltage reported. You can only get battery warning if you enable it under the warning settings once the battery is already lower than your minimum voltage, but that's normally too late. The plane will slowly crash because your servo, which is locking, using a lot of current, will just empty the battery in half an hour, and then you are without the glider. Okay, let's go some questions. David Woods, does this only apply to newer version of Sparrow? Can you please write down which function, because I'm not in the timeline now with this question, and I will come back. Which function only applies to newer version? Okay, now we have a Vario setting. This is now the second reporting announcements which you only get while thermaling. This only works again with Sparrow and T3000 units. Snipe and T3000 units. This will not work with Flymate and Finch. You can disable Vario reports. You can enable the actual Vario. That means when you start thermaling, after 30 seconds, you get altitude gain report if enabled. Then after 15 seconds later, you get Vario report. Then after 15 seconds, altitude report. Then Vario report, altitude report. So altitude reports are 30 seconds apart and Vario reports are 30 seconds behind, but they are overlapping, so you get the report every 15 seconds. Altitude Vario, altitude Vario, altitude Vario. Okay, understood? And on the Vario report, you can decide. You can disable it, so you will only get the altitude gain reports if enabled. You can set to report the actual Vario. This is the Vario's strength at exact moment of voice announcement. That means if your Vario is beeping, beep, 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 it will tell you 3.2 meters per second. This beep is 3.2 meters per second. And after 1 second, it can be already 1 meter. You know, so this is actual Vario at the time report has been generated. Then you have the average. This is the average of 20 seconds. So what is your average Vario of last 20 seconds? This is, I would say, in light class, 1 circle or maybe 2 circle if you go really, really high bank. In scale class, this is almost or 1 circle, and scale class, it's also around 1 circle. So this is in 1 last circle. This is my average. Basically, in last 20 seconds, what is the average of the Vario value? Basically, you can hear a beep like 3.2 meters per second, but it will tell you average 2.2. This is your average around 1 last 20 seconds because your Vario goes to 3 meters, 1 meter, 1.5, 2 meters, 3 meters. It's not stable, okay? And then you have a thermal Vario. This is basically, in my opinion, the most important, because this is actual the starting altitude when you start thermaling, and then how many meters you gained in which time. And this is your thermal Vario. From the moment you start circling until now, your average is 1.5 meters per second. So basically, what does this mean? Because when you come into the thermal, you don't find it immediately. Okay, sometimes you get it like this, but basically you do one circle, okay, then you correct, and then you correct, and then you find the maximum. At that time, your maximum Vario, actual Vario, will already tell you you have 2.2 meters per second. Your average Vario will tell you you have 1.8 meters per second. So basically you are more or less around 2 meter thermal. But your thermal Vario will tell you 1.2 meters per second, because first circle was 0.5 average, then it was 1 average, then it was 1.8. Altogether it's 1.5, and it will slowly come up to your actual Vario. And this is important. Many pilots says, "Ooh, I had 3 meter thermal." Yes, it was a spike 3 meter. Maybe half of the turn was 3 meter. But if you check your thermal Vario, it was only 1.5, because you spent 2 minutes to find it, then use it for 1 minute, and you're already on top. And this is your time spent on thermaling, and this is the time not spending on flying around the course. So this is why the thermal Vario, in my case, is the most important to judge what to do and decide on the tactics. If your actual Vario is getting lower than your thermal Vario, you have to go. That means your average climb rate will just go down, 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 down. If your thermal Vario is below your actual Vario, keep it, because your how do I say, overall efficiency in thermaling, it's getting better and better and better. If your thermal Vario and actual Vario are on the same level, that means you are in a peak. Use it. Once your actual Vario goes down, you have to go. That means you are already on the top of the thermal, the bubble has left, or whatever, or the thermal is getting weaker. You just have to go and find again another thermal. And this is how you can be the most efficient in thermaling. So this is, in my case, very important information, which I really love it, and I use it a lot. And I only check once I decide to stop and to thermal. After 2 thermals, 2 circles in a thermal, my thermal Vario has to be high. If my thermal Vario is still 0.3 meters per second and my actual Vario it's spiking to 1 meter, 1.5 meter, then it's too small thermal to get it. I just go on and find bigger one in a scale class, also in a light class. Okay, so some questions. Okay, David, the voltage function. The voltage function has nothing to do with the Sparrow. This is basically the reports on Albatross, which came now with version 1.6. If you have been flying with the version 1.5 something, before this was not working yet on Albatross and Finch. But this is was always working on snipe unit and T3000 units. Can you upgrade to a newer sparrow if you have old version that only works on 6 volt or lower? Please contact me about this on email. We will find some solution if you really need it, or we will find somebody who can just use it in a light class which has basically 5 volts, and we will find a solution for that. Okay, John Greenfield, how can you hear thermal and actual Vario at the same time? Actual Vario is your beeping. So basically you have to learn what beeping sound means. I can distinguish what is 1 meter plus minus 0.2, what is 2 meter, what is 3 meter by listening the frequency of the beep. And I can then listen to the voice announcement of thermal Vario. So I hear my beeping is like beep, 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 beep. That's 2 meter, and I have set my thermal Vario, I see, and I hear Vario 1.5. Then I know, okay, my actual Vario is higher, I will keep it. Then I hear like beep, 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 beep. That's around 0.7 meters per second. And I hear my thermal Vario report 1.5 meter, nose down, go. I don't think about anything anymore. This is how. Okay, let's go on. Let me just check the batteries. Okay. Any questions about the voice? No. Okay, then we go to the graphics. Okay. We try. Okay. 1 second. Okay. Under graphic settings is basically where the pilot can set all the visual stuff which is then used on flight page. Okay, at this moment I will ask you, Bernie, again for some assistance because I don't know what you are seeing. Let me try now to use this. Okay, can you see now the PDF file, Bernie? Yes or no? Yes, okay. And can you see now both PDF and the Albatross on the left side? Bernie? Please unmute microphone. I can't hear you.
Yep, I've got 2 screens, one with a map, one without.
Okay, but you do not see the Albatross.
Don't see the Albatross information. No.
Oh, okay, then I can't mix them together. Sorry. Okay, then I will just tell you about the colors on the Albatross app, and then we will come back to this screen PDF to tell you about what is what. Okay, let's go back to now. I hope you see the Albatross again, right? Ah, why is now so big? 1 second. Oh, come on. Okay. Okay. So basically all the colors which are then displayed are set here. I will just show you how to set a color. You just click on the rectangle here, which is colored by the color used for a track line. In this case, blue. You click on it and you get a color picker. Okay. You just select the color of it, let's say pink. Then you can use the transparency. on the bottom slider and how dark should it be on top slider. So basically, to go black, you just go by any color, put it to the darkest and put no transparency, and you will get black. And to use the white color, it's a bit slow. Let me just go out. And to use the white color, you just click on it again and just click on the middle and you are white. So these two colors are quite tricky to get, but this is how you can get it. So now it's white track line and I will put it back to blue. Okay, I think I'm faster on the phone. Okay, so blue again. Okay, so we have a track line. I will then explain you what is what. Track line, observer zone, start finish line, support line. This is not yet implemented, so ignore this one. We have a task color, bearing line, now box background, now box text, in this case white, map background, in this case white, and a glider, in this case black. Okay, now I will go back to the two screens. Okay, so
yep,
you can see it. Okay, we will just check the right one. So blue line is my track line. This is always showing straight. This is the direction your glider is flying. Okay. Bearing line is the red one. This is the line towards the point to which you are navigated to, in this case, start. Okay? Task, in this case, is white, is the color of triangle. Okay? The observer zone is this turning point sector, which is now dark purple because they are transparent, but when it will be active, it will be the color which you set. Then we have a start finish line, color yellow in this case. This is this line. Okay. And then we have now box background color. This is the background color of these now boxes. We have now box text color, in this case is white. Then we have a map background, which is basically the black in this case, and the glider color, which is white in this case. So these are the colors which you can change. Okay, Thomas asked me which color save energy. If you have the AM LED light displays, it should be black. Black color should be the least power consumption. And also it's what pilots use the most. And this is why this screen is showing like this, because you can see white and black color the most. But you have to set something else for the track line, bearing line. If everything is white and black, then you will not distinguish what is what. Okay, so back to the Albatross. Okay, then we have the tail option. Oh, sorry, one more question from Jens. When do the measurements for the thermal calculations like averager or thermal starts? When you start thermaling? Sorry, the averager is always last 20 seconds. The thermal vario is when you start doing the circle.
Das weiß ich doch schon.
So basically, when you start thermaling and you turn for 1/4 of the circle, it will start measuring your thermal vario. By switching to thermal page or automatically, average is calculated on 20 seconds and thermal for the whole thermal period. Yes, this is correct. So average, it always lasts 20 seconds. Doesn't matter if you go straight or if you thermal. The thermal vario and altitude gain will only start at the point when you go around. Okay, tail settings. Tail is basically your, I didn't show this on the share. Let me go back. This circle here is basically your tail of the glider. This was on a simulator, so this is why it's just a circle. But here you can see before over here was bad air because it's a blue, and the blue you can see it's sink, and the red it's climb. So you see now the bad air was here before, so you can experience the bad air again. On the left one you can see here red, so it was 3.2 meter vario, so it's showing you good air. So this is the tail of the glider. You can turn it off, or you can set the interval, how long the tail should be in seconds. 180 seconds means 3 minutes. This is basically when you fly the light class or even the scale class a bit slower, you will do one triangle in 2.5 minutes. And if you set a 3-minute tail, you will still see what was the air before in previous triangle. So you can judge when the bad air is coming, so you can increase speed before you enter the bad air, so you can just go faster through the bad air. This is basically the graphical information what you heard before, but if you forgot what was the vario at the point 1, you can just look at on the screen a bit. You see the colors. If the colors are yellow, red, was good. If it's blue, it was bad. So you have to go a bit more speed, go around that point and go back and start searching in the area which was more yellow, white, or red, and they are thermals. So this is the tail. So we have one problem with the tail, and the problem is that older tablets or phones with Android 4, 5 are just too slow, and once the tail is enabled, the Albatross will go very slow. Refresh rate will be like 2 hertz or 1 hertz or even less than 1 hertz, so it's not usable anymore. So then you have to turn off the tail and buy better Android device with more RAM memory and better processor power. The tail size is just the diameter of these dots, can be very small, medium, or wide. This is just how big your tail history around the task should be presented. So if the tail is off, like on the settings right now, this doesn't matter, tail size. If it's on, then you can say, I want to have it for last 180 seconds. I think the maximum is 5 minutes, so that's 300 seconds. And then you can just say thin, medium, or wide. You just have to check it, what it's okay for you. You start with thin. If it's too small, you go with medium. If it's okay, you leave it. If it's too small, you go to wide. So you will find your best setting. Okay, any question? Can you link the tail only to thermal page? No, you can't. So this is always working. Okay, let's go back. So now we did the graphics. What are the time? So the time now. Oof. We are already 1 hour, so I don't think we will finish today. Maybe we will do another one. Okay, Vario speed command Simulator, Stefan, is only for me for developing. There is no simulator for the users. Vario speed command. This is the settings for your Vario speed command. This is MacReady flying future. Vario filter. This is basically the response of your Vario. So that means if there is 0 and goes to 1 second, a step, sorry, 1 meter per second. If the Vario filter is set to 1.8 seconds, that means the Vario will reach 1 meter per second in 1.8 seconds. This is, let's say, a filter of the Vario. If you set this too low, you will have very crazy Vario signal, which will show you immediately what the plane is doing, and that's not okay. You have to have around 1.5 to 2 seconds. It's very good. You will see the plane, then you will hear it, and it's if the plane does this, you will hear more stable. Otherwise, it will go. You cannot fly. Somebody I saw already 0.5 seconds, which is the minimum value, but set it higher. It will be better for you. Electronic compensation only works on Snipe and Raven. Sorry, only on Raven, but you can have Finch on ground. Electronic compensation, basically you can replace the tech probe with the airspeed probe and use the electronic compensation of your stick thermal. That will be a different workshop only for that. The range, Vario range, is basically what is the maximum of beeping. That means the maximum Vario tone is, in this case, 1.5 kilohertz positive frequency, and anything beyond that will be the same frequency. Also for the negative, it is 300 hertz, and that means for up, this is the tone and the beeping, and this means 5 meters per second. If you have a climb of 6 meters, the beep will be the same. It will not demonstrate you higher values. For the sync is the same. That means minus 5 meters per second. So if you are flying in a region where there are only 2 meters thermals, you can set this range to 2 meters per second. That means you will have more separation of the Vario beeping tone for lower Vario change. That means at 2 meters per second will be the highest beep. So that means you will have more like beep, 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 beep. This difference will be in one case 0.7 meters per second, but in your case 1.5 meters per second. So this is how you can fine tune. But if you fly different planes on different regions, you would like to have this range the same for all planes. Why? Because you will learn what the beep is presenting. So always one tone, beeping tone, is telling me 1.5 meter per second. And if you change this range value to different values, you will be confused, because then you need to know what is my range. And this beeping is now telling me 1.5 meters. On different glider, it will tell me 2.5 meters. This is not okay. I hope this is understandable now. The range. This is basically the maximum and the minimum value of the Vario beeping. The values on now boxes can show unlimited, can show up to 20, 30 meters per second. There is no limitation, but the Vario beep will stop at 5 meters per second and will be the same for 30 meters, 20 meters, it will be the same as for 5 meters. Okay, Kerstin, I'm losing the Vario voice almost in the first triangle. Nevertheless, I use my sniper feature combination with my sparrow, doesn't come back. And no, I'm not alone. What can I do? Okay, please send me again the email. I forgot about these problems on emails, and we will talk about the problem on emails, not spending time on the workshop, because I have to see what is going on with your system. Okay, then we have 0, positive and negative frequencies. Leave it as it is. If you want to have higher pitch tone for the positive vario, you can just put here higher value, and then it will be just higher frequency for the vario tone. You can experiment a bit, but this is 95% of the pilots, or 99% of the pilots will use this. Then it's a vario sound. You have to enable it to get the vario beeping on Albatross. If this is disabled, Albatross will not beep Vario. Snipe and T3000 will always beep Vario. You cannot disable the Vario beeping. So this is only for the Albatross, if you don't want to have the Vario beeping. Then we have the negative beeping. This is also something new now. Basically, this is the offset of when the beeping starts. Basically, if your glider is sinking 0.6 meters per second, and if you are used of flying that you would like to know when the air mass it's already start to climb, not the glider, you can set here the negative beeping to minus 0.6. What will this do? When the plane is sinking minus 0.7, it will go like, oh, and then when the air mass will start slowly rising, and you will get to 0.6 meter sink, the vario tone will go like tut, 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 a little bit lower tone, but beeping tone. That means for the pilot, the air is already 0 or slowly rising. So you slow down and start searching for a thermal around this area. That's all. You just move the trigger point of beeping or non-beeping to minus some threshold. Okay, so this is if you are used to flying like that. Otherwise, you just turn off negative beeping, and that's it. And you just have the vario will start beeping when the plane is moving up, and will not beep when the plane is moving down. With negative beeping, the vario sound will already start beeping at the point at which you set here. My vario Thomas Shorp has a question. My vario sound is off in Albatross app, but I hear a vario sound. If you have a snipe unit, it will always give you the vario sound. But if you hear the vario beeping in Albatross app and your vario sound is bad, vario sound is off, then send me an email, and then this is a bug, so it should be off. And John Mitchell, if I'm using T3000, do I have to switch off Albatross vario? You don't need to, but then you will have two vario sounds, one in T3000 and one from Albatross. You can just put your tablet or phone volume to 0, and you can also disable it like this. Okay, so this is all about vario. There is nothing about speed command yet because its McReady flying is not yet implemented. So any question here? Yeah, because you use snipe unit, Thomas, you always have a vario sound. Okay, then we have a servo settings. And here I can demonstrate now with the system how to use it. Okay, so basically in these servo settings, we have different options to operate. What is what? Actual value is actual value which is being detected by the onboard system. That means your Raven or Sparrow or FlyMate unit is detecting in percentage. Then you have a start restart. If you enable this option, you can control from your transmitter to trigger to arm or to restart the task. You don't need to click on the app, on the tablet. You can just do this on the switch of your transmitter. You can go to a thermal page by the switch of your transmitter, to glide page, to start page, to info page. You can mimic by pressing the arrows on the flight screen to go to next page or to previous page. Or you can use the speed command switch, McCready flying, which is coming later, and I will not talk about this. So how to do this? I will now quickly demonstrate. I have everything connected to the system. I will connect my snipe to the Albatross. I'm being asked if I want to connect the device. I said yes. So now you see actual, I have over here, I've programmed on my transmitter to use this actuator switch as my start, restart switch, and this slider to go to thermal page, start page, and my glide page. Okay, so these two are then programmed inside Yeti to be mixed to one channel. And this channel is then connected to Sparrow, Raven, or FlyMate unit. So basically, what we can see now, the actual value is telling me 75%. Okay, I say, okay, in 75%, I want to be in my in my start page. So I enable start page and I put here 75%. So 75 actual, and when this value will be detected, it will go to start page. Then I move it down and I see 85%. I want to be down in my thermal page. I enable thermal page and I put here 85%. Okay, and then up, I want to be in my glide page. In glide 64. You just copy the actual value detected. And when I use the switch, it goes to 14%. Nevertheless, on which page I am, it always goes to 14%. This you have to program in your transmitter. You have to mix, in this case, that this one has highest priority and these ones are then lower priority switches. 14%, start, restart. Let's enable start, restart and put the value to 14%. Okay, now I will quickly go to the flight screen to show you this. I will go back. Units are saved. I will use my flight screen. I will use my plane test 2, which we are working on now. I will use my home light task and I will go to fly mode. Okay. Oh, something new. Okay. So now we can see the start on the top is black, which means it's not armed. So when I will use this switch, the start label will go red with the arrows. I use the switch and start is triggered. Sorry, it's armed. Now after I will cross the start finish line, it will start the task. Next, I want to switch to my thermal page, put the actuator here, and I'm in a thermal. Put it into the middle, I'm in a start, put it up, I'm in a glide. So this is how I can control from my transmitter using two switches. Maybe on DC-24 you can use the switches behind. On other system, I don't know which switch you can have. You can basically control everything. Okay, so this is how the servo control is being used. So the questions now, I will go back to settings. Okay, Jose, can I have different servo settings for different models? Yes, each model has its own servo setting. So if I check my servo setting for test 2 plane 148564, if I go back and I check my 17 glider, I have different values. I have 14, 89, 81, 85. Because in each glider I have a bit different switch mixture inside the transmitter, and I just use the values which are there. So this is a setting which is linked to a glider. So each glider, you have to program its own servo settings. Okay, arrow speed command switch not told in user manual. Correct, because I have been testing this yesterday, and maybe you will also have it enabled, or I will just hide it before I publish this version for you with latest bug fixes. So this is future speed command is make ready flying. That it will tell you which speed to fly basically. Kerstin, does it only work with a Yeti? No, this is system independent. You can have Spectrum, GR, Graupner, Futaba, whatever it is, you can use it. If you have a Yeti or Core, you can use the servo value from protocol X-bus or P2 bus. Otherwise, you have to use the bottom connector on the Raven or Sparrow, and you just mix whatever switch you would like to one servo channel and use this servo channel to control the app. So yes, this is possible with your Graupner transmitter. David Woods, I have 6 now boxes on my Albatross skin. You are showing 4 now boxes, correct? That's a bug with this new version, which I have been testing. If I go and use different glider, it should be correct. Yes, this is correct. 4 now boxes is a bug, which I just saw it now with a new glider. We will fix this before publishing. So that's correct. It's 6 now boxes per page, not 4. John Greenfield, I link the Albatross page to my flight modes. So for example, when I'm in thermal mode, I actually get the thermal page. Yes. Some of them will just link, I have here my phases switches, and I could link this control to these pages, but because I would like to know, even when I'm thermaling, I would like to see some information which I have on my glide info. I use separate switch. Why? Because when I'm thermaling, I would say, oh, what was my last index? I have my last index on my glide info page, sorry, my glide page. I just switch to the glide page. I check my index, or I check how many meters I lost in the last triangle, which is on that page. So I know, okay, I lost 80 meters per one triangle. So I have to climb at least 80 meters to do one more. This is why I have on a separate switch control of the pages. And this is all questions being answered. So any other questions about the servo? Think not. Okay. Let's go about units. Units is nothing special. This is basically just the units being displayed on the now boxes. I think all the world will just fly metrical, because on GPS triangle competitions, the task, length, altitude, speed, it's everything meters and kilometers per hour. So you have to use these settings to see the values on the now boxes correctly, to not have the penalty points. But if you just use it for fun, you can set the altitude in the parallel mode, so you can have feet, knots, miles per hour, up to you. Then we have cloud setting, which I will come back later. I will go now to beep settings. And beep settings is the setting which made the most problems with the new version. Why? Because it's hidden, and majority of the pilots didn't read the manual and didn't find it. So the beeps were off by default. Now they are on by default. With this is a bug fix with the version coming. So the beeps is again a bit special, as these beep settings can only control the settings on Snipe. This is basically the beep settings for Snipe, and only inside beep will work also on Albatross for Finch and FlyMate, and that's it. What that means is, so the penalty points, I will just go by the line. When you enter too high or too fast and the beep penalty is enabled, you will get on the Snipe and T3000, you will hear doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. That means penalty. I think it's better to go back and do a restart. If you have the voice announcement of penalty, you will hear doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, 52 points. You will hear the penalty and the announcement of how many points you have. So basically, my option is voice announcement off, beep on. Because on the Finch and FlyMate, you don't have the penalty beep. You enable the voice announcement, and if you hear 52 penalty points, you know you have a penalty, you go back. Okay? Then inside, it's a beep generated when you reach the turn point sector. In the Snipe and T3000, and it's like, you hear it like this, you know you reach the point, you go next. On Albatross, you will hear beep, beep, beep. You know you reach the point, you go on. So you don't need to have voice announcement inside enabled if you enable the beep inside. So the Vario beep will be stopped and the beep, beep, beep will be heard. And the Vario beep will continue. Okay? Start condition is something that I'm working on. This is not working yet. This will trigger you when the system will detect that you will get the penalty points like 100 meters before. It will tell you you will be too fast or too high. This is coming. Only working on a Snipe at the beginning, then I will see what I can do also for the others. Then we have distance 1 beep, distance 2 beep, and distance 3 beep time. This is now the user can change the times at which the first beep, the second beep, and the third beep will come. In these settings, it will go when I'm 8 seconds before reaching the turning point sector, I will get beep, 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 3 times beep. Then when I'm 4 seconds before I reach the turn point sector, I get beep, beep. Then when I'm 2 seconds before the sector, I get beep. So basically when I'm flying, the beeps will tell me I'm approaching and how far away I am. So I say first 3 beeps, it's 8 seconds before it's get ready. Okay? Then it's 2 beeps, it's like a set, and 1 beep, it's like go. So get ready, set, go. What that means, get ready is I want to be outside of the task, nose pointing directly to the sector. When I get 2 beeps, I have to be at that position. When I get last beep, I start banking and pulling. And then I reach the sector, and by flying only these beeps and stereo navigation, I can fly easily index 105, 108. always. So then this is when you do not need a helper, and this is only working with Snipe. That's a benefit of the Snipe unit with stereo navigation and these VIPs. And T3000 has fixed 150, 50, and 20 meters. This will not change in T3000 VIPs. Okay, some questions from Chris. General question, when you have time. Okay, my first with Zoom, I have a flashing red button recording. That means that I'm recording the session, and whatever you say or do, it will be recorded. So if you can see what I'm telling you, you can hear me, you're okay. Bernie, okay, you already answered him. John, I have all my kit updated to the last version. It's better now to listen to audio from Snipe or Albatross. For now, listen still from Snipe. That will come in near future that we will switch to Albatross. So for now, I would say Snipe users just listen to Snipe voices. Later on, you will be. I will inform you now. You can use Albatross voices for everything. Aro, have you measured the actual latency over PET Sparrow, Yeti telemetry, Finch? It's, I would say, random. It's not fixed, the latency. It's really depends on Yeti, but I would say it's lower than 1 second. It can be immediate or also up to half a second. I noticed that it's a bit delayed. So that's using the back channel of Yeti. Using the back channel of core device, there is no latency. I would say like 10 milliseconds, not more. So I would say that's perfect. But I have never flown with it. I only have the core on the table to test it, but I have never flown with it. So I have somebody already flying, and they're not reporting that it's not working. So I think everything works. So that's it. Okay, so this is the beep settings. This is common for all gliders, because normally if you would like to have these beeps set at this interval, you would like to hear it in light class, sport class, any class. And because the time is always the same. Even if I'm flying the light class, I get 8 seconds before, it's 8 seconds before. That means 100 meters in light class, but in a scary class, 200 meters before I reach the point. Okay, it's time, not distance. Then we go to the cloud settings. And over here, you must enter your email account. If you would like to use the email button on logbook, and your username and password if you would like to upload the flight to GPS triangle link. This works because everybody is now uploading using that. I get this information from Pascal from GPS triangle leak that he already got like 700 uploads from Albatross directly with no issues. So if you have an issue, please check your username and password. Maybe you mistyped, and you need to have the internet connection when you are trying to upload. If still not working, please send me email and I will ask Pascal to check why your account is not working. Okay. Only upload issue is no model or site info. That I don't understand. John Greenfield, if you can explain a bit more. So if I now go back and let me just see. Okay, now we are a bit on, let's say, time limit 1 hour and 30 minutes. I can go on and present you one more option like logbook, but for sure we will not be able to do a task and a flight because that will take me 1 more hour minimum. So I would like to suggest that we do again this workshop tomorrow, the same time, and we continue with the flight task and logbook, and you prepare the questions for tomorrow if needed. I hope you agree with that, and we stop today, and I can just now answer the questions because we did 2 buttons and we still have 3 to go, and the flight is as long as the settings, I would say, to really get into the app. So let's please now, if you have the questions, I would say just unmute the microphone and ask me, because I think it will be faster that way, that you type and that I answer. So for all the typed questions, have you, okay, is it possible in the future to upload to Soaring Click? That's the question for the Pascal, because Soaring Click and GPS Triangle Click is the same server, so this should work, but that's the question for the Pascal Brunner. Send him an email, and I think we can do that. So that was Thomas, John. Sorry, upload does not populate the model or site. Yes, that's correct. If you upload the file from the logbook, that was yesterday in Vipawa, we have been flying. So the example is, this is non-uploaded flight. You only get the table of the lab indexes. And if you press an upload button, it's now not working because I don't have any information in the cloud. This is the uploaded version. You basically get the picture from the GPS triangle leak with the altitude and the path. And yes, on the logbook, on the website, GPS triangle leak, no model and no flying site will be assigned to this flight. You have to then go and manually enter it on your logbook. You select the flight, press edit, select the model flown and the place where you have been flying, and then you will have also this. We have been trying to do this automatically, but until now we didn't implement this because there is a synchronization problem between the database of the glider inside your Albatross and the database of the glider on the GPS triangle leak and the flying site, because the task name can be whatever, and you have the name of the flying site set differently on the website. So this is why this is not working. Next question is John means there is no, okay. Available apps to read IGC files. There is one online free IGC viewer, which I will publish the link for it later today on a Facebook site and on YouTube link, which I will publish this video. I will also publish the link to this IGC viewer. This is free, but the one I use is CU. This is the full-size glider analyzer, which costs something. I don't know which prices are now. Then you can analyze everything, really everything. So, and you can also reply the flight, you see 3D, what you were doing, and so on. Next one from Bernie. I need to go. Okay. Thank you, Bernie. Bye-bye. Stefan also. Everybody, thanks. Thank you. Okay. Let's say, I hope I see you tomorrow again. We continue. If somebody will not be able, also tomorrow's session will be then published, recorded and published on YouTube, so you can check it later. Thank you, everybody. If you have any questions, write it down, and see you tomorrow again, the same time, the same place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrei.
And ciao.